Well, 9/11 is a day that we will always remember. So as we take a moment to reflect and pause on the brave first responders and many others who died that tragic day 19 years ago, we ask this question, and it's an answer that you will likely vividly know the answer to. It's simply this: where were you?
Well, 19 years ago, I was in Knoxville and worked for Knox County Schools. And that morning, there had been a meeting, a very important meeting that had been planned for well over a month, and I was the one that was sort of the one that had pulled the meeting together. And we were just getting started when my assistant came to the door and asked for me to step outside. And I sort of waved her away, and she was most insistent, which was very unlike her, saying, "Please come out here, there's been an emergency." So when I stepped outside, she informed me that my husband had just called, and he worked for the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and for him to even call was, unlike anything, that had ever happened before. So anyway, she wouldn't give me any other information other than to call. And so when I got him on the phone, he said, "Have you watched the news?" And I said, "No, I haven't had time to watch the news." I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, something's occurred in New York. And I just remember just getting sort of weak-kneed, because our son lived in New York and had lived there for several years as an investment broker, as well as a stockbroker. And I said, "What kind of emergency?" He said, "I don't know, just turn the TV on. Something's happened at the World Trade Towers." My son was affiliated with, was hit. There was almost a sense of relief, because it was, several floors, as we all know now. And I'm on the phone trying to get hold of him. You couldn't get any kind of cell contact going through. My husband was trying to get through. He couldn't get through. And so we watched it unfold, and the second tower was the one that fell first. And so that was a day that is etched in my brain in so many different ways. I was one of the fortunate ones that we finally had contact from our son about 1:30 that afternoon. He borrowed someone else's cell phone. In fact, it was his floor manager, as they were running across the Brooklyn Bridge. I guess the thing that really stands out with my own son, making it as far as they did and watching the building collapse. Terrible times, dreadful times.
I was teaching freshman computer applications at Smith County High School. It was a CTE class. In that particular unit, we were working on a website design. I was teaching them how to code web pages, and everything shut down. The internet stopped working. We couldn't get anything done. We couldn't post anything, and the principal stopped by at about 10 o'clock. The principal stopped by and said, "Hey, you might want to turn on the news. Something big's happening." And we had TVs in the classroom then, so we couldn't do anything with our computers. We flipped the news on. About the time the plane hit the tower, the second tower got hit, and that was where we spent the rest of the day, is staring numbly at the TV, completely ripped out of what we could do.
I was in first period teaching calculus class at MT-JULIET High School, and we now have an annual tradition where we take a full senior class picture, and that was the first year that we did that. And so as I took my class outside to get on the bleachers to take a picture, we walked by the main office, and I saw everyone huddled around the TV screen, and the Twin Towers had just been attacked. And this is interesting that I remember that Jimmy Gonzalski was barefooted, because I remember as we walked outside for the school picture, I thought, why is he so out of dress code? So I remember every moment of that day. And also, I wish I had it. It's at my daughter's house. She was in sixth grade, and as soon as things got quiet at her school, she began to journal every moment of that day. And every year about this time, I read that, and it just reminds me what a powerful impact it had on our young students as well as the adults.
So definitely not something I'm going to forget. We had a faculty meeting before school that day. I was teaching in Metro, and I know one of our other faculty members came up to me and said did you hear about the freak accident this morning? A plane ran into one of the World Trade Center towers. And so we were all watching the news, and then, it didn't take long for everyone to realize that that was much more serious than just a chance accident with all of the other things going on. And that whole day and week was kind of surreal. I lived close to the airport, and it was very, haunting to not have that air traffic overhead for a while. And working through the emotions of that with students, trying to make sure they were able to process that, and we were having a hard time dealing with it as well. And that's something, just that feeling is not one that I will ever forget the rest of my life.
As for me, well, I was a student at MTSU at the time. I had just gotten out of a biology class, and after that class, I went over to an area they call the KUC. If you're an MT alum or currently attend school there, you know what that is. But it's a commons area, student union area that many students go to. And I remember there was a TV off to the right side when I walked in the door. And I remember Peter Jennings breaking in for live coverage with ABC News, the late Peter Jennings. And he was trying to explain exactly what he knew at the time. A chaotic day, lots of confusion. I remember that I was one of the first ones in that TV room, and then as I began to watch and watch and watch, before I knew it, there was dozens and then close to 100 of us in that room, and we were just watching in silence. I do remember that friends and even people who didn't know each other at all were hugging each other and crying and just trying to form some sense of what had just transpired and what was happening that day. So, quite a day. Many of us will never, ever, ever forget. So the question is again, where were you? I'm Bart Barker with Wilson County Schools.